Okay, or I need to open the windows?
You look good. We are live.
All right.
Start seeing some folks jump on here and take a look and see if we can get some folks to start tuning in here.
They tell me the governor's on right now, so I guess we're competing against him.
Oh, yeah.
I think he had a 2:00 press conference.
Are we? Oh, man. Well, I think what we have to say is pretty important, too. So,
and we've been hearing him for a couple of years.
Yeah, we've been hearing a lot of him. So we'll be sure to get some. We'll be sure to get some good folks watching here. Got a couple people watching right now. If you like the page, like our the video here, and share it amongst yourselves if you can. I've just want to make sure that we get in front of as many people as we can.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm still trying to text a few people myself to see who else might be out there that might know who I am.
Yeah. People know you, Craig. People know you.
Back in the day.
Back in the day, people knew you, but they still do.
I hope so. I believe so.
Yeah. How you been doing? Hanging in there?
You know, it's been an interesting time for everybody. I think I am so intrigued by the world and the changes that we're going through right now. And this morning I was watching a news story about the Great Depression, and it said that there were about 23.5% of the population that were unemployed during the Great Depression. And then it said that possibly at some point in the next 30 days, we could be at 32% unemployment in our country.
Wow.
And kind of interesting to think about how we equate poverty and negativity with the Great Depression, and yet we could be almost 10 percentage points higher in unemployment than they were at that time.
Yeah, it's definitely unfortunate right now, everything that's kind of happening, and more importantly, what's going to end up happening, what we're going to see more of. Unfortunately, it's just going to be a part of an ongoing situation that we all just got to do the best that we can right now and be the best that we can, I guess, at the end of the day. So,
well, the world that we knew 6 months ago won't be the world that we know 6 months from now. It's not already not the world that we knew, but how we're going to evolve and come out of this, things like we're doing right now. With the ability for people to be able to reach out during times when everyone's kind of homebound and looking for something to, some way to alleviate maybe the stress or some of the things they've been doing to actually put their mind on something that's a little bit different. Historically, it seems like that when you turn on the news at night, that 3 or 4 of the top 5 stories every night are negative stories that have to do with crime. And now we don't even address crime and what's going on, in that respect, because all of our focus is now on the virus and the impacts it's having on the number of people who are dying and are sick.
Right.
And so we've taken a part of what we saw on the news every single day. Police officers involved in incidents with the citizens, and we're kind of changing that around a little bit to where that's not even a focus at all.
Yeah.
You got some people jumping on still, or you got anybody jumping on?
Yeah, we got some folks jumping on here.
I'm just trying to find one here myself.
Yeah, there you go. It's got some pretty good feedback going on. It did. That was my fault. But yeah, I mean, those are some good points. I'm like a lot of folks right now. I think there's a lot of uncertainty, but you know, I think at the end of the day, we'll be, we can all stick it out and you know, and stick together. We can all surpass this. And as long as we're all doing the right things, right?
Well, I think yeah, I do. I think that this is a time when, I think we read about our grandfathers in America Strong and seeing the plants turn from car manufacturing plants and electronics plants. Well, they didn't have electronics back then, but the car manufacturing plants turn over to building tanks and to helping. And I think now, we've seen so many companies come forward who are changing the way that we perceive them and how they're trying to help, and the people that are creating these new ventilators and the masks that are being supplied by people, which I think just really shows what America Strong really stands for.
Right. Yep. Hang tight with me real fast. I'm going to put this on my personal page real fast. All right. We are getting somewhere.
Okay.
All right. So we got a few folks. Tuning in here. All right. Well, at least we got some sunshine. I guess that's the.
We got a little bit of time here for the first time in a while, seeing some things.
Yeah, we're there we go. We're yesterday was a little bit depressing. I think the with everything going on and the rain, and I'm just thankful for a little sunshine. People can get out and about in their backyards and take care of themselves.
We had 11 days straight of rain, which was a record here week before last. Last week we had some sunshine. We had 11 days before that. And it's already a depressing enough time with the things that we're going through with regards to the virus. But when you couple that with sunshine, people need sunshine. And I think that, statistically, we've seen that when people are caged or are in their house and they can't get outside and they don't get a chance to get sunshine, that there's at times a propensity for violence to increase. And I think that we're kind of we're experimenting with that, if you will, right now, not of any choice that we're all making. That's just the way the world is right now.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the case. And hopefully it can be managed to a certain degree. I think with, people tuning in and taking a look at taking a look at what we're providing here and some added value and just being self-aware of kind of what's happening. But I'll let you so for those of you tuning in, be sure to like the page so we know that you're watching. Please be sure to comment if you have any questions. Please be sure to put those in the thread here so we can review and answer those for you. But just going to ask Craig, Chief Miller, to come on the other day and just kind of throw some added value propositions to some of the community out there and help you guys be a little bit more self-aware as to, what's happening and, what's the potentials with this virus situation and people being cooped up in their homes. We just want to make sure that bring some added value to you guys sitting at home right now. My name is Greg Reichel. I'm with the Reichel team at Citibank Mortgage. I'm a mortgage consultant, and I've been doing this for quite a while now. And I met Craig. We are on a board of directors together through a large credit union here in town, and I've been able to share some stories and or more or less hear some stories and some of the craziness that he has had to deal with over the past several years. And it's been very intriguing. And I think his story is awesome and is great. So 30 years in the task force and Dallas Police Department, all over the place. Alma maters, Memphis.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
I'm bold.
There you go. He supports that hat frequently. So he also has a company, a consulting company called CMG. And I'll let Craig kind of fill you in a little bit. But if you haven't checked out his website, please go check out his website, chiefcraigmiller.com, and you can read up on him a little bit. But Craig, I know I know your story. I know a lot of folks know your story, and there's some that may not. Tell us kind of from the very beginning as to where you how you got in the career of law enforcement, and kind of just a breakdown from the beginning out of school up until where you are at today.
Yeah, absolutely. I graduated from college a long time ago, back in 1981. As soon as I graduated, I went to the Dallas Police Department. Really didn't know anybody on this side of the Mississippi River. I'm from just outside Nashville. But as I came, like most people, I came to the police department and went through the Dallas Police Academy, and then went to the Northeast Patrol Station, which doesn't exist anymore. The one you see there on Northwest Highway isn't the one that I went to. That station doesn't exist anymore. And so anyway, worked my way up through the ranks. Had a unique opportunity. I made sergeant, fortunately for me, at a very young age, just after 4 years. Went to Central Patrol, which is downtown. And during my first year as a sergeant, we had 10 guys that worked for me in my sector. 9 of those 10 guys got shot or shot someone. So I got exposed to a lot of police use of force type incidents very early on. And then went to work in the Vice Division, worked undercover, and then made lieutenant and went to work in computer crime analysis. And ultimately worked in several of the patrol stations, and then went to, in 1997, went to the narcotics division, where I spent the next 7 years working undercover. And actually, a lot of people watching your show, watching us today, probably don't remember the fake drug scandal of 2001, where a group of 2 informants actually duped us out of $450,000, and
wow.
And they actually we bought pool chalk from them, and 2 officers went to the penitentiary, and the police chief lost his job, and it was a stressful time. But I came out of that and went to what I'll call the greatest job on the police department. I was the mounted patrol commander. It was called Tactical Services, where I was over the horses, the dogs, and the bomb squad, and then got moved, not of my own volition, to the place that changed my life, professional life, and that was the homicide division. And I was a homicide commander, Dallas PD, from 07 until 2011, when I made deputy chief with Dallas PD. And during those 5 years that I was in homicide, we had 750 murders that took place and 500 suicides. But more importantly, for something that I deal with, we actually had 75 incidents where police officers used force. The police officers either shot someone or a police officer was shot. And so what I've done, I left in 2011 from Dallas PD after 30 years and went to a Dallas Independent School District, to Dallas ISD, to be their chief of police. And I stayed there until just last March, a year ago, 2019. So I was there for 8 years, and during that time, I started working as a subject matter expert for police use of force civil rights violations, and I currently am engaged in representing cases with the city of Dallas, the city of Austin, and the city of San Antonio. But I also work plaintiff's cases against police officers when I feel that the force they used was inappropriate. And so last year, I started my own security company, the Craig Miller Group. And a friend of mine, Lee Smith, and myself went into this, and so we started doing vulnerability assessments for school districts. And so we've been in the process of doing that, as well as working with hospital systems to make sure that they're safe and that the people who are actually in the hospitals when they're supposed to be in the hospitals are there. Right now is a really unique time for hospitals, especially for children's hospitals, and who can have access to those hospitals and to those patients. And I'm sure that is something that is really difficult for hospitals while they're trying to manage what's going on with the virus. In 2012, I think we had the Ebola virus that came through the city, and Dallas ISD, when I was the chief at that time, we were really touched by the Ebola virus. And how that impacted our students that from those schools that were in those areas, how they didn't go to school, and today to see what's taking place. And so I'm very involved through the Texas School Safety Center in working with school safety, which is another one of my passions, because I want every kid to be as safe as possible. But once again, it seems like everything that's been of high profile, whether it be school shootings or police officer involved shootings or murders, are now taking a backseat, as they should, to a time where we're all in society vulnerable and potentially exposed to a virus that looks like, by all indications, is very deadly and can take your life. And so it's interesting seeing how I've grown up in the last 38 years in law enforcement to where we are today, and the struggles that are going on. I noticed where the city of Dallas is trying to activate the convention center, as a possible triage location. And I've seen that operational a couple of times. During Katrina, I saw us activate that in Rita as well. We activated that area, and I've seen how those hospital systems work down there and how successful they've been. So I'll be interested in watching moving forward, just how we're able to take care of people that come into our city or that are currently in our city but don't have any place to go to be isolated, and how we're going to be isolated, hopefully.
Yeah. So your story is by far one of we've had many opportunities to sit and talk and visit just about life in general in the law enforcement world, and just some of the things and trials and tribulations that you all have to deal with, with the community itself. As far as as far as the police force taking the police force doing their daily jobs and taking the risk and being out in front of the public and around the community, how do you tell me what your thoughts are and how this will impact us from some of the officers coming down with the virus and being exposed to it? Like, what's your input on that, and how will that affect us as a community?
Well, I think two days ago, the New York City Police Department had nearly 600 officers who tested positive for the virus. And so they're a department of 45,000 officers. Yeah. Obviously, you think about the difference. They're the largest police department in the country, 45,000. And you look at Dallas PD. When I was there, we had 3,600 officers. Now they're sitting right at about 3,000 officers, but still Dallas PD is in the number 9th largest police department in the country. So there's a big difference in the sizes there. But as it is worrisome to me as I see the Dallas police officers that are testing positive because of, one, the calls that they've been on prior to them testing positive, and then two, not just their families, but their police families that they've been involved with. Because when you come to the police department every day, we're broken down into shifts, and each of those shifts has detail rooms. And in those detail rooms are the other officers that are checking in to report for duty that day. And so you may have 6, 8, 10, 12, 20 people in that detail room. And so when you have an officer who comes out of that detail room having tested positive, you're having to weigh now whether or not you're going to isolate the other people that were in that detail room with that officer. And if he or she came to work out beforehand in the gym there, how many people have had access to that gym? Because, the last thing we want to do is for anyone to spread this virus, but we certainly don't want law enforcement to come down with the virus or spread the virus either way. And so I see a dramatic impact on this. I think already the police department, as I said, has broken down into shifts. Used to be days, evenings, and nights. Now they call them Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie.
Okay.
But now we've actually just gone to a straight Alpha, Bravo shift. If they haven't gone to that yet, it's something that they're going to be going to, which is where all the officers are working a 12-hour shift on and off instead of 8-hour shifts. And so now you're having to worry about the stress associated with trying to be attentive during 12 hours as you're doing your job, because there's a lot of things. Your head's on a swivel when you're a police officer anywhere, particularly if you're a police officer in a large metropolitan area where there's been violence that's been committed against police officers. You're always having to watch your surrounding and see what's going on. But I think that there's so many different calls that I see that officers are dealing with now. I think one of the number one calls besides a traffic stop that police officers are exposed to danger or violence is a family violence type of situation. And I predict that what you'll see is an escalation of family violence calls, because unfortunately, as much as we love our family, sometimes too much of our family can put stress on the family. And so, when I start to call the police to come and intercede, many times people aren't happy with the actions that they ask of police officers, because a family violence call is a very dangerous call, because even though the person is hurting and needs your help, they're also very protective of their loved one. So I see police officers, having to be really engaged in some calls that are going, as this thing continues, in particular, as I said, when we were talking a bit earlier, Greg, when you're looking at the Great Depression of having 23.5% unemployment, and now you're looking at us today, possibly 30 days from now, having more than 30 or 32%, and you've got 10% higher unemployment in 30 days from now than you had in the Great Depression. There's a lot of stress on a lot of people. I'm not just talking about food, but you do have mortgages, and there are places that are waiving their mortgages, but there are people that have cars that break down. There are people that have washing machines and dryers that break down. There's not enough food. There's a lot of stress on families to eat and to take care of one another. And I think we always have to be cognizant of the fact that at some point it's possible that people that wouldn't historically ever be involved in a criminal element will do whatever they need to do to protect their family and take care of their family. So we're certainly not there today. This isn't a state of anarchy, but I do think that we have to be cognizant and aware of the fact that darker times are ahead of us as we continue to self-quarantine and continue to have folks lose jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. So with the police force, just kind of going back to the police force, being exposed to so many different individuals that may be carrying this virus, and how it's going to continue to impact. And I mean, do you find that it's like you were bringing up the family violence situation? I mean, we've seen a spike in that. We've seen a spike in spousal abuse, child abuse. What I guess in times like these, not that anybody is necessarily watching, but it's always a really, that's someone individually is watching that is actually performing that at home. I really hope that you're not, and if you are, then you shouldn't be a friend of mine. But at the end of the day, it's very serious, and I know people get stressed out, and I know, I'm surprised my kids haven't run inside here and started yelling yet. But at the end of the day, like, I would say there's quite a bit of outfits that can also help, outside of your own personal thoughts. I mean, if people wanted to go get help or get input, I'm sure there's outlets that can be provided, if I'm not mistaken, based upon, some of the information that we've been receiving through the news. And sometimes the news doesn't always provide the most accurate and uplifting, information that's provided to the community. But I think overall that the information, if we can just be more aware, what we're trying to bring to you today is just be more aware of the surroundings of the people that are in your life, on your street, in your neighborhood, that, this is a real thing. We're cooped up inside for at least until April 30th, based upon President Trump's, announcement. And then we have no telling how long it's going to be. I don't even think, to be honest with you, that we've seen the full effect of this virus here in the city. So I'm really excited that we have you providing the input for us today. I know there's still a few people popping on here, and I see, some folks here. So we'll just try to see if you guys can maybe add some content as well. If you guys can provide some questions, if you have any, for Chief Craig Miller. Every time I'm around him, I ask him several different questions. He's got a lot of really, really good and crazy stories. But we'll seeing some folks pop on here. You guys be sure and share this on your Facebook page. Be sure and share this on your Instagram or YouTube, or you can always find it on events.thereichelteam.com. Before we go in kind of the next little segment we have, but so Guy Rogers, he's asked you, what can we do as good citizens to discourage criminal activity as officers are being pulled in other directions to fight the corona outbreak?
Well, I think that's a really important question, because we're in a time when there's, especially as police officers start to test positive and the workforce shrinks, and we don't have as many officers on the street as we may have at another time, that we are going to have to do a lot more. I don't want to call it self-policing, but we are going to have to take care of ourselves and take care of our loved ones. Certainly, you don't want to outstretch what your responsibilities are. You're not asking anyone to be patrolling their neighborhoods, but I think that it's important for us to be aware of our neighbors. I think I've seen a lot of people out on the street recently, a lot of people walking. I think this is a great opportunity to get to know your neighbors, even though you have to do it from a distance of further than 6 feet away. And if you're across the street, I think that if you know that you have elderly people that live nearby you, to see if there is a way to check on those people. This is a time for humanity to help humanity. This isn't just a time for the police and our fire officials to come and be your protector. This is a time for you to be aware of your family and their needs. It's interesting, Greg. I saw a story the other day where gun sales are up 500%, and there's no guns on the stores. And I don't know if gun stores are considered essential places, if they're all required or not, if they've been excluded now from being open. I don't know that, but I do know that a lot of people are ramping up to take care of their family. But I think that it is really important to be aware that as the workforce potentially could shrink in law enforcement, that we are going to have to take care of a lot more of our own things, to be aware of your surroundings. So, if you have lights on the outside of your house, you need to have those lights changed out. So you make sure all the lights are working, that they're motion detected. If you have the Ring doorbell system, that's a really big advocate of being able to capture people that are coming up to your house to see things that are going on. I think that we're going to have to, like I said, reach out to our neighbors, introduce ourselves to people who maybe live next door to us that you've never even taken the time to meet before, and to find out as much as you can about them, because they're going to have the people that are in their house now, but they're also going to have people that are visiting. And if people that
Right.
are visiting, you want to know where those people are coming from as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the main reasons in my, that we're seeing the borders between Louisiana and Texas. They're having this checkpoints and whatnot. It's just to secure. We're trying to get as well as possible. None of us want to be cooped up in our houses longer than we have to be, and we want to be around society. And being stuck inside can do really dangerous things to other folks. Suicide rates. I mean, that really spins off into, I mean, how do you think this will handle on depression, as far as with the job loss and the, folks that are already in a state of depression that may look at, harming themselves and stuff? Like, do you think we'll end up seeing a spike in that?
Well, I think that suicide hotlines probably will see an increase in callers. During the Great Depression, as I said, one of the stories we all hear about is people jumping out of buildings, and we hear about just real panic. And I think for a lot of the public populations here today, they can remember 9/11. That was someone that we could see. This isn't something that we can see. It's floating through the air. I think that we're going to be challenged in humanity to try and overcome this. But we've never had to self isolate like we are now, at least not at the level we are now. I think that depression is something that comes, as we talked a little bit earlier. One of the things is the critical incident training is something that all police officers go through, and it talks about how to deal with people that are schizophrenic, or talk about people that are undergoing a great deal of stress, and how we in law enforcement approach those people. But I think that it's only natural to think that every one of us wants to take care of our family and protect our family and keep them safe and keep them fed. We're not talking about going on vacations here now, or taking plane trips and doing fun things. We're talking about essentials. And even people sometimes with the means aren't able to find toilet paper, aren't able to find basic necessities that we need. And I think that the saying "desperate times calls for desperate people." I think we're not there if we sit here today, and I don't want to predict that that's going to happen.
Right.
But I also don't want to predict that when I hear them say, if we don't, under the best of scenarios, that before this is over with, we could see between 100,000 and 200,000 people die from the virus, and millions and millions of people be contracted with the virus. I think that we have to practice social distancing. We have to practice isolation. But as you and I have been talking about, Greg, people in your house not having, looking at two small children and maybe not being able to get diapers, or being able to get formula, or being able to get necessities for them. In many instances, because it's not available at the store, but in many instances because you don't have the funds or the ability to do that. I think this has shown that our society is very giving, and I think that is something that impresses me so much about the time that we're in. We're members of Lake Point Church, and Lake Point takes in food every Sunday, and they give out hundreds of thousands. I think last I heard, nearly 500,000 meals that they've given out to families, through the donations of the church, just in a matter of a couple of days. And I'm so impressed by the giving spirit of the American population to try and help. Schools is something that I never really understood till I went to Dallas ISD. When you're looking at 230 schools, you have 153 elementary schools, but in the best of times, Dallas ISD has somewhere between 70 and 80 elementary schools, where every single Friday kids are issued a backpack in that school with enough food to eat for the weekend. And
Yeah.
I didn't realize that took place. So many times we're wanting to go overseas and we're wanting to help people from foreign nations, which is a very commendable and honorable thing and very necessary. But it shocked me when I realized that, we have, 80 schools, right here in the city of Dallas that every week we give them food to eat. And I think now what's going on with schools, one of the whole reasons that a large school district like Dallas, one of the main reasons in summertime they're open, besides those few people that need the assistance academically to keep up, is actually to feed the kids. And so, we're in a time now where schools have really stepped up and they're helping to feed the population, and that's important and that makes a difference. But, there's, like I said, we only gave enough food for a backpack for the weekend. We've been 3-4 weekends now with no school. The schools are still continuing to feed. Every school that anybody that's being able to watch this is from their kids is feeding their kids if it's a public school.
Sure.
Almost the private schools, but I think that's really great that we're seeing people do that. But to go back to your question, I think that as things get darker potentially as this progresses on, and we had heard maybe the president say that he had hoped initially maybe to have some sort of normalcy back by Easter. I think now we know by him extending the date to the 30th, April 30th, that we know that's not going to be. There's no facet of our world that we know it today that won't be changed or impacted by this. I think that's the thing that's so unique. When you see Ford and Chevrolet and Chrysler not making cars, and you see airlines not flying places, every facet of our world is being touched by what's going on. And so the people that are undergoing this job loss and coupled with depression, people that are losing folks that can't even attend their funerals, that are able to get out and go to see a loved one, people that are having babies, for mothers and grandmothers, not mothers so much, but grandmothers on both sides, and parents who would normally be at the hospital, not able to be there with their loved one when they're having those having their children, or you see people that are, weddings that are being canceled. A lot of money that's been put into those weddings that the vendors are saying, well, we can't pay you back right now. A lot of venue sites. There's a lot of restaurants that it's just
small businesses, fundraisers. There's a lot of community help. There's a lot of community outreach that provides back to the community when it's for, we had an event, the Touchdown Club. There was an event that was canceled. I know they worked really, really hard over the past year putting this thing together, and it's just unfortunate to see certain things. And it's very much more because I know the stuff goes to a great cause, and it's really more unfortunate to see a lot of the small businesses and a lot of the service industry and the restaurants that we all like to go out and enjoy. Thankfully they're actually able still to do the curbside thing, but we don't know how long that's going to last either. So we just got to be as positive as we can possibly be right now in this crazy world that we're dealing with. But we've seen different aspects of these things come and go, and probably
the money, Greg, the stimulus package that people are going to be getting is awesome. I mean, it is so positive. But if you're a family of four and you get $3,000, but your mortgage costs $3,000, that money won't last very long. If you're an employer and you have employees, and if we're able to work the way they say it's going to work, where you can continue to pay your employees their normal rate without them having been there, and you can be subsidized by the government, that'll be awesome. But unfortunately, that's not the case for everybody. We're still in a time when, you can drive by and new construction still going on and people are still working together, in construction and in close proximities to one another. And there are plenty of people that are trying to work, even though they shouldn't be working because they have to work. And, hopefully most of the people here watching this show have never been in a situation where they didn't have any food to eat.
Right.
When you're in that situation, it becomes much more desperate than it does to someone who's just saying, well, I can't find enough toilet paper. When it's somebody that says,
Right.
I mean, diapers to put on my baby, and she's been wearing the same diapers for the past 24 or 36 hours. That's what causes stress, because that baby's going to be stressed out. The other people are going to be stressed out. I mean, it's just, and that sort of thing that will require, in many instances, a police response, which is different.
Yeah, again, I mean, we continue to say it's unfortunate, everything that's kind of happening, but we've got a lot of people still out there still providing for their families where they can't work from home. And, that's, I see the folks at the checkout counter at the grocery store down the road, and they're doing what they can, and they're being, they have a work they have to do to continue to provide for their family, but more importantly, they don't really have an option when it comes from their employer saying, hey, you have to work, we need somebody here. So I know we still got a few people tuning in and stuff like that. If you guys can just let us know you're watching, please be sure to shoot us a message, a comment if you guys have any questions. Again, just before we kind of get on to the next, I just wanted to also let you know that if you want to look into maybe visiting or reaching out to Chief Craig Miller, then please go to his website, chiefcraigmiller.com. And we'll kind of talk a little bit later, kind of about what you're doing right now on some of the consulting era of they released the school for the ISD, a lot of things like that. I saw that on the paper, and then on the interwebs. So we'll kind of get into that, but
txschoolsafety.com is another site.
Yeah, txschoolsafety.com. If you guys have kids, or if you don't have kids and they're in the school systems, it's really important that you stay in front of the safety of your children. But one of the things that it actually leads us into kind of the next question I had was, when students right now are out of school, and low income, high income, it doesn't really matter right now. But when they're out of school, you think we'll end up start seeing a little bit higher increase in crime from the kids being cooped up, and maybe some of their folks are at work because they have to be? What's your input on that? Are we going to see a spike from children and kids being out of school?
We absolutely will see an increase in that, and that's exhibited throughout history, because every year, give or take, June 1st until September 1st, the kids were out for summer school. And as a police officer, the crime always saw a spike and an increase in crime during the summer when the students were out. That's just inevitable. However, now one of the interesting dynamics that we'll see how this plays out is that most of the crime that's committed is not persons crime, meaning murder, robbery, or rape. It's really more of the property crime, burglary, theft, criminal mischiefs. And a lot of burglaries go up, home residential burglaries in particular go up during the summertime. But now you've got a lot of people that are home. And so there's a potential for a confrontation, because I think as people become more desperate, and I think as they become more needy for essential items, that they will possibly engage in crime, because history has shown us that students will do that. And as you said, Greg, it's not specific to inner city or urban schools. I mean, for one thing, kids are synonymous with being kids.
Yeah.
And they're going to do things that they wish they had never done before. But, to kind of go back, I think that a lot of times TV sensationalizes stranger on stranger crime, that the Jack the Ripper or the people that are murdering people that they don't know, when in fact the vast majority of crime, violent crime in particular, occurs from people who actually know one another. And so, you always wonder why there's not as much, say, crime in Highland Park as there is in South Dallas or in West Dallas or in East Dallas. And, people are, don't have means to travel. And so they're more apt to strike close by, in close proximity to where they live. I do think that we're going to see an increase in crime. However, if we talked earlier, right now, the focus, especially the media attention, is so, as it should be, got us going towards the governor's briefing, which is taking place right now. After him this afternoon, it'll be the president's briefing that'll take place. And I think we're all glued to our televisions every day when that goes on. But those things, that's our society. Greg, one of the things, and work being at the credit union, that we found is that the average millennial who's not able to conduct a banking transaction within 8 seconds will move and go on to the next thing. Right. I think that as much as older folks like myself are focused every day on the news and what's going on, I think that younger people just kind of assume, well, this is a new thing, it'll pass. What can I go do right now? I don't have to be at school. I don't have to be at work. And I think for some people, crime will be that. Whether it's just criminal mischief stuff or whether it's serious crime because people are desperate and they need something to eat.
Right. I don't know. I think we just, again, I mean, we talked about this. I had you in a class to come visit with us at a title company, and we taught this. It's, self-awareness. I think we talked, it's been a couple months back. I don't even know. It's been longer than that. I guess it's been almost a few weeks since we've been cooped up, but we were just talking about self-awareness in different parts of Dallas and the different tiers of crimes. And, a lot of times it's people, they may say, oh, in this certain part of town, it's high level crime, when at the end of the day, it could be just someone breaking in your truck, which just happened to me last night. So, so, it's it was it all kind of worked out because I went out there this morning, and then the truck, and we leave, our area is a good area. We live in the East Dallas area, and you just have people out and about that are nosy, and whether they're bored or not bored, or they're just, whether they're kids or trying to get out of the house, it's just being a little bit more self-aware, making sure that you're putting the things up in the evening, making sure you're locking the vehicles, making sure that you're paying attention to your surroundings. If for some reason you're out by yourself in the evenings, stuff like that. So
Greg, there's some stuff online that a lot of people aren't aware of as they have time. You don't have to be a criminologist to be able to understand some basic crime analysis. The Dallas Police Department does an excellent job with this, of being able to go on to their Dallas Police website and to be able to look at crime trends and patterns. We can all do it. You can go on there and look about sex offenders who may be in your proximity, not necessarily in your neighborhood, but maybe somewhere nearby. And to be able to go on there and watch those crime and to conduct crime analysis, that'll show you, is there a spike in car break-ins? Your car break-in, once it was reported to the police, will be put into the database, and people in your neighborhood could go and say, hey, look, more cars are getting broken into. There's been an increase in this type of crime in this area. Because, let's face the facts. Criminals aren't people that necessarily want to work hard for their efforts. Right. And if you leave your car unlocked at nighttime, in a time where people become normal times, but in particular in desperate times, and people are just pulling on door handles to see what door will open, or if you leave your purse on the front seat, or you leave your billfold on the front seat, or you leave your laptop on the front seat, don't be surprised to find it not there on your front seat. So I think it's on us to be able to hide things, to take things that are common sense. Don't leave your door unlocked. Don't leave things in places where it can be seen easily. I think that's a good practice all the time. But I think now, in particular, as this continues on and more people are out, because I think all of us will admit you've seen more people out recently walking
Oh yeah.
than at any time, maybe in the last decade or a couple of decades.
Yeah.
And so, you'll start to see these school age kids whose parents have had to go back to work. They don't have the ability to work from home, who are out, and they're out there doing what school age kids will do, which is get into something and do
Get into something. Yep.
they didn't plan on starting to do.
Yep. I know all about that from being the age of in my younger days. It's you're just the inevitable. Kids will be kids.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know we have a few more minutes here and then we'll wrap it up, but with all of this stuff happening right now and whatnot, within the school system, kids staying at home, is there any input, the community being more exposed to the virus, police officers, is there anything that you have that you can provide to us that you haven't already, that you can provide to us that may help someone listening right now? Because I know we've had several folks jump in and out, and we've had a comment, and we would love to hear some questions and answers here, questions here in a minute from some of our viewers. But is there any added value? I know we kind of touched a little bit on the Texas school safety stuff, but
Greg, I think that what people are don't realize many times is just that we've grown up where none of us, me or you, want to have someone point a gun at us and
right.
try to rob us, or at someone that we love. But the fact is that we live in the era of cybercrime, and people can go in and take your social security number and drain your bank account.
Right.
Is a different way of robbing you than the way that we grew up. And in law enforcement, the bulk of our emphasis is always on feet on the ground concept of let's go out there and catch the bad guy. But the cyber folk are different. And I think one of the things I really want people to think about, because there's always somebody out there trying to scam you. I mean, and that's under the best of times. But right now, when you're in a time like this and you're desperate, I think people have to realize if it sounds too good to be true, then it's not true.
Right.
And many of the states now are looking at people that are offering up treatment scams, that are out there offering fake cures and fake vaccines and advice. And if you call this number and pay this fee, we'll get you the test that you need to get without you having to wait and go through the process that everyone else is having to go through. And you give them some money and just put it in this and put it into your PayPal account and then give us the access. And they'll try to do that stuff. The testing scam is a really big thing. Someone will call and say, "I'm with the Red Cross. I'm just trying to help people with during this COVID season. We need you to give money to this so that we can get a test for you." And I don't think all you need to do is give us your social security number. And I know on the surface people go, "Well, I would never fall for any of that stuff." But I don't think any of us have any idea during a time like this when people are so desperate and someone calls or someone emails you and does that, supply scammers, fake websites, fake shops, social media accounts, charity scams. It's going to be one of the biggest. If 100% of the money you give to us is going to go to the kids in your school system or your neighborhood. And I just cannot, these phishing scams, you can probably describe those better than I can, Greg, on what those phishing scams are. App scams, if you sign on with this app, we can do a test for you from home. All you got to do is take your temperature, sign on, get this app, and put your phone up your forehead, and we'll tell you what your temperature is. The whole thing is they're trying to get your Apple ID, and I just think that people don't realize we're in an era where we're vulnerable because we're desperate, and I think desperate times call for desperate measures, and I think that was be one of the things I really want the people who are on here to listen to think about. don't fall for these scams because they're coming. If you haven't got them already, just click on this link, and when you click on that link, then you got that your whole computer got the virus and you're infected, and that's their whole thing. I think that Greg, we've grown up in a time like 9/11 where people were bombing, and we've gone a more direct route. But I think what this has shown is it's really more of an Ethan Hunt type approach to things. When you look at Tom Cruise and his series, and where I think a virus of this nature is much more crippling to our economy and much more crippling to our society than maybe a direct shot of a bomb hitting some buildings. Even though that's a horrific and terrible thing, and it should never be allowed to go on, and it forever leaves a memory to us. But the impact that this has had on us, and the ability that this gives people that realize this is a vulnerability for not just the United States but for the world, to say they can take advantage. I believe that.
Right. I know the cybercrime and in the real estate industry, we're always made aware pretty frequently about the wire fraud. The great title companies that we work with here through the Metroplex, they take very large caution when dealing with that. And I mean, that's a form of, a form of cybercrime, as you will. I mean, someone's on the other end making up fake web addresses with emails that are very similar to others, and sending it out to the consumer or the title company and requesting, certain information. So you got to also keep an eye on that.
Yeah.
That's a great point, Craig. We had a question. Stephanie Patterson asked, in your opinion, should you let your child play with other children in the neighborhood at this time during social distancing?
Well, I think there's a number of things to consider. There is the child that your child wants to play with. Is she someone who's staying at a child care center where other children are? That would be something that I would want to know. Is she staying in a home where the parents are not self-isolating and they're going to work and they're coming back? I would want to know that. If all things considered equal, if I knew the family next door and they were self-isolating like I was self-isolating, and I knew that no one else had come into their home and no one had, then that might be an option that I would certainly consider, because I know kids want and I know parents want kids to be able to relax and to have fun. But if I can prove that they had, if they're going to a child daycare center themselves because their parents work essential jobs, and that means that they're potentially exposed. And I would not want my child to be in that situation.
I think, again, it goes back to just kind of being a little bit more self-aware, of the surroundings and, and what we're doing, and to help to provide, cure the cause instead of be a part of the problem.
I know she's talking about a young child, but
young kids. Yeah. I'm speaking just in general. It's funny because I can walk outside right now and walk down the street, and there's tons of people out and about, and it's just kind of knowing you're just knowing who you're. I'm not going to walk up to a stranger and let my kid play with a stranger, but I mean, if you have a neighborhood kid, a next door neighbor, somebody that you're familiar with in their daily activities and their children's, they're taking the same precautions that you are. I think that it's probably something that isn't too alarming. Before we wrap up here, thank you again so much for joining up today on this. You provided a lot of good input, and of course, I always value your value your input. I always enjoy chatting with you. Anything else that we should know about you and your services, that what you're currently bringing to the table outside of the value that you've added today with some of your consulting companies?
Well, I think that just like for the folk that are watching who are in your industry, in the real estate industry, to understand, there's a lot of issues and a lot of questions out there about, can I show a home? Should I do open houses?
Sure.
And I think that there are some things that you can do to protect yourself in that capacity. And I think there are some things that myself and my team might be able to help you with to feel more comfortable. I think workplaces, businesses that one of the number one, I think, concerns that we all should have is when things get back to normal is workplace violence, and who's coming into our businesses, and how are they getting into our businesses, and do we know everything we need to know about our employees? I mean, if you have an employee, do you have a requirement when a new employee hires on with you that they sign a form that says if they put a restraining order against someone in their family that they have a duty to notify you? Most people wouldn't do that because they're going to be embarrassed because they don't want people to know that type of situation. But not knowing that, if a husband comes up to the real estate office and the wife and he are in a dispute, and there's been a restraining order put out against them, he could be coming up there to harm her, but you don't know that. And yes, so it puts yourself and the other people in the workplace in jeopardy. And I do think that there are some things that companies that feel we don't have any problems, that we're rock solid. We've got cameras, we've got buzzers, we've got alarms, we've got this and that, that there are some things that they're not maybe as safe as they think that they are. And, I think from an insurance provider's perspective, there are things that companies should be doing. And I think we should be offering those companies discounts on their insurance as a result of them doing some rudimentary things that make us feel that they're safer and they're doing things better. And so I think that if there's anybody out there whose company needs that type of assistance, if you're a multi-housing unit and you want to know, what do we do when a lockdown takes place? I mean, when the Dallas police or the Plano police are in a situation and they come by and tell us there's a guy, a masked gunman on the loose, he was last seen in our neighborhood. What's your responsibility to the people that live in your living community? Do you have any responsibility? We've talked before about how realtors approach crime if someone's looking at a house and they ask you, say, hey, well, what's crime like in the neighborhood? And you go, well, you can look online, you can look, this is in East Dallas is a really safe neighborhood because, you don't want to pigeonhole yourself. And I can respect that. But I do think that there are some places that you can refer people to that a lot of people don't know about that I think could, in some of the stuff that I do with my expert witness business, I deal with premise liability issues. And when I say premise liability, the word that comes to my mind is foreseeability. And was it foreseeable that had you told this person who's coming in there to look at this property that there was, at least there's an option to just go, no, crime's fine here. I don't know of any issues, when in fact there is something going on. I think that realtors should be going online and reviewing those crime databases that are available in whatever city it is if they're selling those houses, so they can at least be informed about the crime in that area. And I know that you guys are taught not to say certain things, and I respect that. I understand the industry. You don't want to scare off a potential buyer, but I think to just give people the correct place to look is appropriate. And I think that's something that my group could help you with as well.
Yeah. And I know we did a class on that, and maybe we'll bring that back here in the next week or two, because you were part of one of the largest trials that came through through Dallas, that I know they're dealing with a lot of that.
Amber Guy was the expert witness, defense expert on the Amber Guyger trial. And so there are some things that's right now currently in litigation. Not from her standpoint, but from the property where the offense took place and how it was laid out. And I think that everybody needs to understand that if it is foreseeable that something could have happened, if you're at a large store and system, and you're the manager of that store, and you know there's panhandlers on the outside of your store, approaching people, and you don't run those panhandlers off, and one of them does something to someone, then the onus falls on you. Because if the crime analysis shows that, yeah, there have been a number of panhandlers arrested, but you stuck your head in the sand and said, no, it didn't happen, or I didn't know anything about it, that's not a defense to prosecution. You know,
right.
It's foreseeable. You should have known about that.
Should have known about it. Yep. Well, we appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for all the input that you provided to us today. Again, you can find chiefcraigmiller.com. And then the other website, the Texas
TX School Safety.
TX School Safety is another one that you guys can, and I will throw it up here just so you all can see. And that way, does that look correct? Texas School Safety, TX School Safety.
Yeah.
So tune in there, check it out, along with chiefcraigmiller.com. Thank you again so much. Please go, and those of you that are just tuning in, we're gonna try to continue to add some more value to you guys in the community, not only real estate related, but folks within the community that maybe are working on a couple different screens or paying attention to their iPhones. I mean, iPhones is it's your best friend right now. I think there's so much that we try to distract ourselves with in technology right now, and I think this platform of business may be the new norm for a while. So, but again, we thank you so much, Chief Craig Miller.
Yes.
And if you guys have any questions, you can find his contact information on chiefcraigmiller.com or go to txschoolsafety.com. Thank you guys. Y'all have a great day, and stay safe out there.
Stay safe. See you, Greg.
See you, bud.